Hello, this is Ella here, and today I'm drawing my good old pals as Jojo characters. I've had this idea ever since I started watching Jojo this year, I think. And after planning and thinking about everything with everyone's stands and like their outfits and everything like that, I'm pretty happy to showcase everything. So let's get started. Okay, so first I'm gonna start with myself. I had several ideas I wanted to do for myself. I just thought of all my favorite bands and songs and just like basically played like a really long playlist trying to like figure out everything. And when I took this music theory class a while ago, we had to introduce ourselves and we had to say what our favorite song was. And I just picked the first thing that came to my mind, and that was Shadow World from Persona 4. I really like that song. I don't know if I really have a favorite song, but I do currently have a favorite band, and it's called IDK How, But They Found Me. But I thought that name was kind of long, so I didn't go with that name. I was trying to come up with power ideas, and eventually I came up with one that I had to scrap because it was already a JoJo stand according to Robbie. And the idea that I had basically was if I got hit by something, a barrier would form around me. And this isn't like exactly like the stand, but this is basically like it was too similar for me to do. If I got hit by something, a barrier would form around me, and if I don't move, basically I'm like invincible. And I also added this like extra thing, where like every time the force field gets hit, the box would get smaller and smaller and smaller, and if it got hit too many times, I would just be crushed and die. I was like, well, I wanted an original idea, so I tried to come up with other things, and I finally went with another band that I was thinking of that I really like at the moment, which is the band TV Girl, and specifically the song Lovers Rock. That song is so like comfy cozy, and I really like the instrumental at the beginning because it comes from this other song I like called The Dance Is Over. It's like an older song. And now power wise, I finally settled on something. I made it so the stand needs to be activated a certain way. So she isn't the strongest physically, but the power she has really makes up for it. And I'll go into detail a little bit about that in a second. But when it comes to powers and like the names, I know that sometimes like your outfit and just like everything doesn't have to be cohesive with each other, but I usually just like let the names guide me because I feel like it's just like a lot more helpful and easier for me to like come up with things to inspire me. And so I just did the similar thing I did with the JoJo OC that I did in a previous video. For everyone else too, I just kind of asked them what band they wanted, unless they wanted me to come up with an idea. Same with like the powers and stuff, because I asked them for their ideas as well. So, but yeah, so we just played around with a lot of stuff. And I know that not all character designs really let you know what their stand does. Like you wouldn't look at Mista and be like, oh my god, he has a gun. But I feel like if you ask someone like what Bucciarati's stand might be, you'd be able to have like a better guess. Something to do with zippers. You notice the oversized zippers, and he's like, maybe it has something to do with that. So I feel like it was okay to have my outfit be like all heart themed to match Lovers Rock. It also says a stand is the physical manifestation of a person's fighting spirit or the personification of their life force. And I feel like my fighting spirit would have cohesion, I feel. Anyway, on to the power. So the stand has several faces on it. It has like a creepy smiley face. It has a teardrop sad face and like a rectangular angry frustrated looking face. And the main face at the top, which is a heart. And I thought that each face can unlock a different ability or some sort of rock coming out of it. I'm still really iffy on the details, honestly, so this is probably gonna evolve over time when I think more on it, but this is just what I have right now. But basically, if I'm feeling an immense emotion that correlates with any of these faces, for example, the heart one, if I'm feeling a sense of being flustered or heart eyes, it produces a rock that can easily be like breakable and turn like maybe to dust. And I was also thinking that maybe it could do something along the lines of being able to put the enemy maybe under a trance, or I can like control them, or maybe like just have them act as a teammate on our side, but only for like a very small window of time. And I feel like it'd be really OP if I could just like produce a bunch of rocks all at once. So I made it so the rocks will disintegrate if it's not used quickly. I also feel like the other faces could do similar things. I feel like they're just mostly kind of like buffs in like an RPG game that you like would give to the enemy to make it like harder for them, is what I feel like my stand does. Okay, now on to the next one. All right, next is Robbie's. For him, I had the idea of it being kind of something techie with wires, like relating to wires. I had a really cool like design idea for him too, for like the stand specifically. I wanted it to be like completely made out of wires, and I thought it'd be like a really cool thing. For like his fighting abilities, I thought that the wires could charge things, and then Robbie would have like random electronics that he would use to fight to make for like a really creative like fighting ability, kind of like a blender or fighting with like a weed whacker maybe. But while I was coming up with stand power ideas, just like in general, just like listing a bunch of them to try to come up with something for people, I came up with something involving arrows and kind of went from there. The basic idea at first was that he'd be able to have his stand put an arrow on the ground or like on objects, and it would push the enemy back or push something back really like ferociously. But in order to add some more like different ways to fight, like more like creative ways, I added that it's specifically like street sign type of arrows. So on its stomach, you can like, he can change the direction of the arrows with that on his tummy. I'm thinking like as an example, the one arrow that kind of loops around, it would like disorient the enemy and they'd go like all the way around, and then he'd be able to like know the exact location of where to like punch them or like hit them basically. The design for his outfit, I wanted something really sharp and very triangular, so I had a lot of triangles and arrows kind of incorporated all throughout his outfit. I cropped his jacket, made his shirt tie just kind of like go all the way around his shirt and put an arrow at the end of it. I also put little arrows on his glasses. I stopped myself from putting arrows in his hair because I thought that that'd be a little too much. And for the color palette, I gave him some pinks and some greens because I thought it looked kind of nice, and add some like yellow to kind of go with like more like street sign type of things. The name of his stand that we gave him was Iron Maiden. For the design of the stand itself, I gave him a color palette kind of traffic lights, like the red, green, yellow. The red is more orange than anything, but I still feel like it works. I gave him an arrow nose and just made him kind of have like a similar vibe to Robbie's as well. Next is my cousin Dylan's. For him, he already gave me so much to work with his design. I pretty much only took like some creative liberties on things to like Jojo it up a little bit, but he basically like kind of had everything like ready for me when I asked him if he had any ideas. So I'll read the stand ability that he wanted. The stand name is Gorillas. The ability is Sound Check Gravity. Okay. It has the ability to see the future trails of individual people and their stands. Wherever a person or their stand is headed, Sound Check Gravity will be able to see their path in the form of apparitions and accurately predict every action they're going to do. Weaknesses include they can only see one person and their stand's trail. Otherwise, they'll have to switch to see another person's trail. Their sight is also exclusively limited to the user and stand themselves, meaning if they incorporate external things during their actions, such as grabbing objects, setting traps, or taking vehicles, they won't be able to see those objects as they are not part of the user or their stand. He also provided me with a bunch of like outfit ideas too. I exaggerated the collar of his button up. I gave him a footprint tie, and I gave him like a really high-waisted pants and added 2 belts. I don't really know why I did that. I just kind of thought that it looked cool. I also added a bunch of eyes on his like buttons because eyes are really prominent in his stand design, so I wanted to have like some cohesion there. Since his ability is like trailing people, I added a bunch of footprints all throughout his jacket. As for the color palette, I went with the Gorilla album that I really like because I think the colors are really pretty, and I thought that they translate really well on the outfit. As for the stand itself, he wanted to have a trench coat for his stand, and he wanted just like a one-eye face from the front, back, and the sides of the head. He even gave me like a little sketch of what he wanted the eye to look like. I added more emphasis to the eyelashes and connected them together, and that was basically it for his. For Jordan's, he came up with the name Levian Rose. Originally, I had the idea that his stand had something to do with like a D20 as like a head that would like be able to roll, kind of similar to like D&D, and he'd have the ability to kind of like, the example I always brought up was like if he wanted to like unlock a door, he could roll and he'd be able to like maybe unlock it and say like it's similar to like fighting as well. But if he got a nat 1, what he tries to do would basically happen to him instead. It's kind of like to even out the power levels of it. But when I told Dylan about my idea, he said that it was basically the same thing as something that happened in Homestuck, which I was unaware of because I've never read Homestuck. As for the design, I didn't want to go with the more like traditional rose color. So I sent him a list of rose meanings and I had him pick the one that he liked the most. And the one that he settled on was blue. So his design, I went with kind of like a jumpsuit. Underneath, I gave him like a tank top hoodie that loosely resembles petals. I added spikes to the pants part of the jumper to represent like thorns. I added roses to the top of the hair because I just thought that it would look cool. And because of the pose, I wasn't able to show this off, but he has a Joestar star on his back because he's Jordan Joestar, Jojo. And I gave him green lipstick to fit with the color palette as well as to match Jolene. As for his stan ability, this is the description that he wrote out for me. Levian Rose transformed its rose into whips, allowing it to lash out at foes and bind them in thorns. The thorns have the ability to release a calming toxin into the victim's bloodstreams, which causes them to lose their vision, replacing it with a serene landscape of a rose garden. After 24 hours passed, if the victim has not found a way to release the effect of Levian Rose, their soul will begin to fade. And he even came up with like how it ties into the song, so I'll just like show that on screen. I thought that was pretty neat. And we also talked about how like it's kind of OP, so we were trying to find different ways to nerf it, and this was our solution. Finally, I drew my best friend Roxy. I showed her only a few episodes of JoJo, specifically 2. It was the alien episode in part 4, and she thought it was really funny, so I wanted to include her in the lineup. I didn't draw her stand, so let's just pretend that she unlocks that in the next episode, and she just hasn't gotten it yet. And the stand name that she picked out was Tool. And finally, here's all of them together. I edited them like they were in a manga because I thought that'd be kind of cool. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. Oh my goodness.